My name is Scott McVicker. I am an Associate Director of Admission. I am a graduate of Marietta College, not in petroleum engineering though, but I was a business economic marketing major, and a few decades ago graduated, and I've worked for 3M Corporation, I've worked for TV Guide, and this is my 21st year in admissions at Marietta College, and definitely the one that I enjoy the most in my career path. So I'm here to help answer any questions that may be more admission related. And then Mr. Ebenhack will be here to answer any petroleum engineering questions. He is our department chair, by the way. So we've gone straight to the top for our webinar on our petroleum engineering program. And with that, Mr. Ebenhack, if you wouldn't mind maybe officially introducing yourself and maybe share a little bit about your history of education and career paths, and then we'll jump right into some of our questions.
Okay, sure. As Scott has indicated, I'm Ben Ebenhack. I'm chair of the Department of Petroleum Engineering. I'm also an alum of the program from a really long time ago.
I don't remember being in any classes with you, Mr. Ebenhack.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I'm very pleased to be back. We have a great program here. I did spend about a dozen years with a major oil company. Started out as a reservoir engineer, then I went into corporate research and corporate headquarters in charge of international formation evaluation, which you probably don't know what that means at this point, but you would by the time you graduate from our program. I then left my company to start a project to try to help people in developing countries find and produce their own energy sources for their own needs, and worked on that for about 23 years before coming back to Marietta. And I think that's probably enough of a nutshell.
Okay. And we've had some new members to join. So, and I'm going to say this a couple times. So if you were one of our earlier attendants, you know this by memory by now, but if you have any questions for those of you who just joined, you have a Q&A button at the bottom where you can type in your questions, and we will get to your questions. So, and our first question that's in the queue here, Mr. Ebenhack, is can you share your thoughts on the petroleum engineering field status following the COVID-19 situation?
Yes, that's a very good question,
Sure.
and a difficult one, because these are very difficult times for business in general, but the petroleum industry has been hit very hard by this. I think you can imagine that the massive shutdown of travel has really diminished the demand, particularly for liquid petroleum products, and that hit prices pretty hard. So right now we're in a difficult time. I expect that to turn around fairly dramatically when the world comes out of lockdown from COVID. There's going to be a good deal of pent-up demand for travel, a fair amount of business and professional travel that really needs to happen is being put off for the time being, and certainly too, personal travel for pleasure is being put off. So I would expect there to be a huge surge in demand that will turn things around somewhat substantially. I certainly, though, can't guarantee that we'll be back into a boom time in the next year or two. I would think that within the time that you would be a student here, I would expect it to turn around. I think we've been in a slump for a few years now. I expect us to be moving into the boom time again.
Have you seen cycles like this before, Mr. Ebenhack?
Yeah.
Not a COVID-19 situation, but we've had other global issues. Have you seen cycles like this before?
Right. The petroleum industry is a particularly cyclical industry. I count this as my fourth bust cycle in my career. So yeah, I've seen it up and down, and I've seen turnarounds be very rapid and dramatic in both directions. So on the one hand, I am fairly optimistic for the medium to long term. I do, though, think that it's good for students to go into our field with your eyes wide open, that even if I'm right and things turn around pretty dramatically, relatively quickly, there will be probably another slump in your career at some point. And if you love your work, as I always have, then it's just a part of your life. And you live with it and you roll with the ups and the downs. If you get in for the wrong reason, it will wear you down.
Okay. Along the lines of the current situation, how did you transition classes in the midst of this?
We went to Zoom classes. I think around the country, a lot of programs did that. And we have done that. We've been teaching online since spring break. And a lot of people have asked me how it's going. And my response is better than I expected. I was certainly not looking forward to teaching online, but it has been going okay. I've been very pleased with the students' attitudes. They're showing up every day online and being attentive, having a sense of humor for the technical glitches that occur. To me, as a faculty member, the worst part of it is not being present with the students, that I can't see body language. I can't tell when students are confused by something or when it's clear. Even if they have their video turned on, the face alone doesn't always give me as much information as total body language. And so I really miss that. I also miss the students are not asking questions as much in this format. I think there is a courtesy concern. People are afraid of talking over me or one another. Where in the classroom, again, with body language, I can see somebody's about to ask a question. That part works much better live. So I'm looking very much forward to getting live again. But I know this is what we need to do for the time being.
Okay. We've had a few new members join. Welcome to those of you who just joined. My name is Scott. I'm with the admission department, Scott McVicker. Our guest speaker is our department chair of our world-renowned petroleum engineering program, Mr. Ebenhack, our department chair. And should you have any questions that you would like Mr. Ebenhack to address or anything admission related that I can address, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And I see that quite a few of you have found that, which is awesome. That's why we are here. So let's see. next in the queue, what are the factors that might suggest that petroleum engineering would be for me?
I think that one of the things to know about petroleum engineering is that we are a very applied engineering discipline. There's likely to be some field work involved. There is often urgency with our work. My specialty, the drilling rig, was commonly standing by waiting on a decision of whether to complete the well as a producer or abandon it as subcommercial. And that was commonly $250,000 a day standby time for the drilling rig. So when I was in corporate headquarters, the division president liked to stop at my office when I was evaluating a new well, stand in the doorway looking at his wristwatch, and he'd count $1,000, $2,000. Then he'd laugh and he'd walk away. But just reminding me that a good answer soon was worth more than a slightly better answer later. And that's not typical of all of our of all the specialties in our discipline, but it is not uncommon that there is some time pressure. Drilling engineers are often facing time pressure with their decisions. The results of our work are often visible. So, of course, with any engineering, strength in math and science are critical factors that suggest that that engineering can be a good choice for you. And for us particularly, liking to be engaged in application and see the results of your work. And for many of our disciplines, spend some time in the field, spend some time supervising operations.
Okay, thank you. What types of jobs have graduates gotten with degrees in this department? And maybe just, some of the more recent graduates.
Okay. Well, most of our graduates are going to work in the upstream oil and gas industry. So upstream would mean from drilling to putting product in the pipeline. Getting it out of the ground, getting it to the pipeline is all part of upstream. So that includes drilling engineer, completions engineer, that's stimulating the well, such as with a frac job, or in modern times where we're developing the shale plays and we're doing long laterals, how you land the lateral relative to the formation is part of the completion engineer's job. The production engineer, I'm going to try to kind of keep it chronologically of when you get involved. The production engineer takes over once the wells are drilled and operates the field, designs equipment for handling oil, gas, separating any contaminants, and getting the product pipeline quality ready. The reservoir engineer evaluates the oil and the gas in place, how much there is, how it's flowing through the rock, and whether you can do anything to improve its recovery. Those are the four basic tracks that our students would end up in. And basically, most of them are going to work either for a producing company, a producing and operating company. Some large companies, Chevron has hired a lot of our students for many years. But then also a lot of small companies that you've never heard of. That depending on your own interests, do you like being a big fish in a small pond? Do you like having a lot of different opportunities? Might you at some point want to work internationally? the really small companies are not going to give you the opportunity to work internationally. Um, then there are the service companies. Schlumberger, Halliburton are two of the largest that provide the ancillary services, logging the wells, cementing, running casing, those kinds of things. And a fair number of our students have gone to work for those companies as well.
Okay. Should a person expect to move around a lot in this career path?
I think that the more flexible you are, the faster your career will evolve. In general, I do like to let people know that when transfers are generally an opportunity that is offered to you. If you respectfully decline, say it's a bad time for you to move, you've got kids in school or something like that, management is likely to understand that. But if you keep turning down a transfer, sooner or later they'll stop offering it to you. And the more flexible you can be, the faster promotions will come, because some of those transfers are promotions.
Okay. Next up, do you recommend taking the summer online chemistry courses that are being offered?
That's really kind of a new offering for us. So I don't have any track record with it, but I think it's a very interesting possibility. It has been crafted largely for our students. The chair of chemistry does not believe that the online experience in the lab is sufficient for going forward in more advanced chemistry courses. But most of our students don't want to go forward with more advanced chemistry courses. So if it's fairly clear that you would be one of those that doesn't want to take more advanced chemistry, then that would be a fine choice. If you think, gee, maybe a chemistry minor might be interesting. I might like to be able to move into midstream, into gas processing or refining. Then I would urge you to take the regular chemistry course so that you're ready to move on into organic, maybe physical chemistry.
Okay. Do you possibly know about the Saudi-Russian oil crisis? And if so, could you help explain what that was about and what the deal was and how it is affecting oil price and supply?
I'm certainly aware of it. I don't have any insider information about it. Neither the Saudis nor the Russians have asked my opinion. If they had, I would have suggested to both of them to go back. It's a trap, because the price wars have happened from time to time over the decades. In general, what I would say is that the Saudis and the Russians have pushed prices low with this price war. I've seen a few different hypotheses about the motivations. Some is animosity between Russia and Saudi Arabia currently. Some is both of them wanting to depress the American industry with lower prices because we have become a major producer again. At any rate, for both Saudi Arabia and Russia, a large part of their economy comes from crude oil sales. And that's a one-time endowment of wealth that they are, by forcing prices low, they're selling off this one-time endowment of wealth at bargain prices. And if either ruler had asked my opinion, I would have suggested that I think it's not a good idea, that someday they'll wish they had that oil back to sell at higher prices. The U.S. is less vulnerable to this because we have a more diversified economy. So our industry is hurt, but the total U.S. economy does not suffer so much from low oil prices as either the Russian or Saudi economies do. So I expect it looks like we've maybe got a resolution to that price war, and I would expect that it will roll out as a resolution.
Okay. Next in our queue, with the fracking boom coming to an end, where will the next jobs be?
Okay. That's an interesting question. I don't believe that the shale plays and fracking is the technology that's really enabled the shale plays. So I refer to the process as the shale play, not just the frack job, which is a piece of it. I don't believe it's come to an end. It has been set back dramatically by these low oil prices. But I believe demand will bring it back again when oil prices get high again. We know how to do it, and it's going to come back, in my opinion. Bear in mind that half of humanity does not have access to modern energy. 3.5 billion people rely on firewood, charcoal, and dung as their primary energy source. The World Health Organization estimates that this kills 4 million people a year by cooking all their meals every day over open fires for hours a day. It's not barbecuing once a weekend. So it's a huge health crisis, a huge environmental crisis, that it's driving deforestation in many places, that they don't have access to modern energy. So there's a pent-up demand of 3.5 billion people that want and need modern energy. This is ultimately going to be driving growth in demand. The stocks, the surface holding of crude oil that have filled up, which was the other part of the price collapse in the last week, amounts to 1.2 billion barrels. That's how much can be stored on the surface around the world. That is less than 2 weeks of global demand. So as with the depressed prices, some production being shut in, we could burn through that entire surplus in 2 weeks. Hypothetically, I don't think it'll be that extreme, but that would be the extreme. So I think the shale plays will come back as price comes back. I think here in the US, that's still going to be a dominant player. Globally, of course, the cheaper conventional oil is going to be a big player too. I know that was kind of a roundabout answer.
Okay. Thank you. We've had a couple newer members join. So again, my name is Scott McVicker, Associate Director of Admission, and you have joined our Petroleum Engineering webinar on this Sunday evening about 7:25, and I should say Eastern Standard Time, because I know we have a couple West Coast members here with us. So thank you for joining us. Our guest is our department chair of Petroleum Engineering, Mr. Ebenhack. Just a word on a little bit, if I might, for the admission side. If you are joining us and you've been offered an acceptance not only to Marietta College, but also into our very competitive Petroleum Engineering program, Congratulations, because it is competitive both places, highly competitive in petroleum engineering here. And your spot is guaranteed, and we're hoping that you take it. And if you are sitting in that admitted stage and are wanting to commit to Marietta College, your next step then would be to submit your $200 enrollment housing fee. And then that will open up a whole new level of checklist items for you that you can start working on, which will include, and by the way, the $200 is a payment on your account. It does not disappear to some third-party account, but it's sort of your official way of saying, yes, I want that spot. And then that will, and we in admissions will help you. Step one is to set up your Marietta College email and student account. Step two would be to sign up for an orientation, at which time you will meet with an academic advisor, build your freshman class schedule. That probably would be Mr. Ebenhack that you would be doing that with. And then there's, whether it's on campus or virtual, there's a parent family track and a student track. So you'll both be doing things that will be very informative for you. And by the end of the day, you'll have your class schedule, students, and I think families, you'll feel very good about the information that you've learned from that day. If you still need a little more information from us, there's a virtual tour on campus. There's a visit link now. We have an awesome visit coordinator, and she can help set up sort of an individualized virtual visit. But I know Mr. Ebenhack has met with families individually that are still trying to decide about Marietta College or not. But we want you to make an informed decision. So if you still need some of that information, please let us know. You can always reach out to the whole admission department by emailing admit@marietta.edu. So, and if you have any questions, a couple more keep coming in, but there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you're welcome to send us a text question and we'll ask Mr. Ebenhack. So with that, next in line, when students are on campus, what are some of the ways that the students are involved with the department outside the classroom, and how do students and faculty have fun?
We've always been a close-knit department, and esprit de corps within the department is important to us. Probably one of the primary ways to get involved as a student is to join the Society of Petroleum Engineers, an international professional society. Actually, your membership as a student is free to you. Companies pay your dues for you. You don't have, all you have to do is click the button that says, when you sign up, that says, yes, I'd like to have my dues paid by a company. Chevron's been doing most of that. I don't know if other companies are going to be picking that up this year or not. We strongly urge you to join. That will connect you with a lot of networking opportunities. We have programs on campus, guest speakers and so on through SPE. We also, when we're able to be together, we take students to both the Eastern Regional meeting of the Society and to the annual technical conference, which, if it is able to happen this fall, will be in Denver, the annual conference. One of my favorite places for a conference. There are also a number of other organizations students get involved in. There's the American Association of Drilling Engineers. There's a student organization that was founded by students called Energy Business Alliance, which is a virtual oil company. The students have fields, data from actual fields, and they form teams that act as if they are operating those fields and making decisions on what wells to drill, what acreage to farm out to others, and how to complete and produce the wells that they choose to drill. It's really an exciting initiative that, again, was totally created by students. Then there is an actual oil company that was also created by students, Thunder Resources, that operates about a dozen wells not far from Marietta. And Thunder Resources doesn't own these wells. A small local company owns the wells, but Thunder gets a piece of the action for operating the wells for the owner. So students there too can get some hands-on field experience with it. I have fun with those things. We will also commonly will do some other things together. Generally, at this time of year, I'd be having seniors over to the house for a farewell party, which isn't happening this year. We often have a party at one of the other faculty members' houses in the fall for freshmen. So we're pretty tight knit. We all have open door policies that you don't have to make an appointment. You don't have to stick to our posted office hours. If you drop by, you can come in and chat with us about whatever's on your mind. It doesn't have to be, you know, how do I account for the clay fraction in the dual water, dual porosity model? It can be, you know, I'm thinking about grad school, or I'm worried about not getting an internship offer so far. What other things can I do? It can be anything. And that's, to my opinion, one of the great values at Marietta, that you get that kind of relationship and mentoring to grow personally and professionally, as well as to learn a lot of stuff.
Okay. Very similar to something that you just said. What are some internship opportunities, and how do you see internships in the next year or two?
I expect internships to remain tight for the next year or two, unfortunately. This year we actually had reasonably good internship offers coming out, but some of them were rescinded with the price war and the COVID crisis. So it's looking to me like perhaps 10% of the freshmen have a summer internship. But there are some local companies that are stepping up to take on a few more students to help fill that void, a few more than they normally would. So it's not collapsing, but it's much weaker than I'd like to see. And I think it's probably going to stay weak for 1 to 2 years more.
Okay. I have to say, from a personal experience, I have a son in college, and his internship, and not in any way related to petroleum engineering, but I think it's across almost every sector of career paths out there. But he had an internship he's been placed on hold for right now. So, so it's just not petroleum, you know. Will social distancing, or with social distancing, how will this affect petroleum engineers?
It's while you're a student, of course, it has the downside that I talked about a few minutes ago, that we just won't be in class together. You won't have those opportunities to stop in the office and just visit. You can set up a Zoom chat, but that's much less casual than just dropping in for a chat.
Mm-hmm.
As a petroleum engineer in the field, I am hearing from a fair number of our alums that they are working from home, working remotely. Drilling has cut back pretty dramatically right now. That stands to reason. That happens in a slump. It also, a drilling rig floor is a place where you can't really maintain social distancing very effectively. Other operations are going forward, and it's just more remote work and more working, staying away from close contact with the crews.
And again, I think that's just not sector to petroleum engineering. What makes petroleum engineering valuable to society?
Energy drives everything we do in modern society. In fact, we Americans tend to take energy for granted. It is so ubiquitously and dependably available. Many of you at some point in your lives have probably experienced a blackout where electricity is lost at your home or something. And you know how surprising it is to walk into a room and you flip the switch unconsciously and nothing happens. Without abundant modern energy, you can't take that for granted. The first time I went to Mozambique, you could count on electricity being out for about 12 to 14 hours a day everywhere. Government offices, when the power would go out, people would simply pick up their work and move to a window to try to work by the light coming through the window. At the finest hotel in the country, as opposed to the other one in those days, the power was out most of the time. My colleague who traveled with me to Mozambique that time, at breakfast one morning, announced to me that she had discovered that there was actually hot water from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. You could take a bath between 2 and 3 in the morning. This was the finest hotel in the country. I also have a former student who had a friend who was with Doctors Without Borders. And that friend with Doctors Without Borders told a story of doing surgery in a clinic in Africa, and the power went out. And they couldn't get the backup generator started. He was in the middle of surgery. He had his hands inside a person when all the lights went out. That was a miserable feeling for him. He actually had to temporarily close and go and work with the laborers to try to get the generator going again before he could finish the surgery. We provide the energy that lights our classrooms, our hospitals, sterilizes the equipment in the hospitals, transports our goods and our services and ourselves. So we provide an essential service to society. And I've always felt good about what I do. Pardon me.
What is your opinion on double majoring in both petroleum and environmental engineering?
I think that that is fantastic if you are interested and can do it. Um, you'll be working hard, uh, taking a few extra classes, um, but a student who comes in with some AP credit or transfer credits would have a chance to do that. And I think that will be a tremendously powerful combination. Uh, there are very few businesses that have more publicly visible environmental impacts than ours. And yet there are very few people who understand both upstream oil and gas operations and environmental systems. So I think the students who choose to do that will carve out a pretty bulletproof niche for themselves.
Okay. Why should I choose this major at Marietta College over the same major at other options, college options?
Okay. Um, we are well known and respected around the world. Largely, the factors that we offer that are rare. We are a teaching college. There are very few petroleum engineering programs at teaching colleges. Most of them are at research universities. From a faculty standpoint, and I have taught at a research university, priorities are 180 degrees reversed. At a research university, top priority is grants and publications. Teaching is well down the list. At Marietta, it's teaching. Grants and publications, we're still expected to do something that shows our professional growth and development, but teaching is the top priority, and working with the students outside of the classroom. That mentoring that I referred to earlier. The other thing is that our faculty is, to my knowledge, the most industry experienced faculty in the world. We average more than 10 years of professional engineering experience apiece before we came back to teach. Our drilling engineering professor has about 20 years. Many other programs are bemoaning that they cannot hire a drilling engineering professor who's ever worked as a drilling engineer at all. So we're special in that way. And in my opinion, you can take with whatever grain of salt you choose, in a very applied engineering discipline, it's hard to teach it if you've never done it.
So bringing real world experience into the classroom, just not
Right.
case studies. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I think we have time for two more questions. And by the way, if you joined us a little later, or if you weren't here in the very beginning, Mr. Ebenhack, his video button, when I sent the link, I must not have included that to give him the option. So that is on me. I apologize for not sending that, but having you here and being able to hear you and not see you is better than seeing you and not being able to hear you. So, but that's
And
why
even
you're
more
not.
so than the students can imagine. Uh,
I should have let you set this up since you already well versed in it with your students and classes. But anyway, I do apologize to everyone for that, especially Mr. Ebenhack, and those of you who have joined. Okay, so this one has to do with conferences outside the classroom. I think you were talking about a couple. So are there conferences offered outside the classroom for our students to attend? And are there any study abroad opportunities for students currently or within the near future?
yes to both questions. There are some conferences that that the department actually supports and pays a large portion of the cost for students to attend the Eastern Regional and the National Conference of the Society of Petroleum Engineers, the International Drilling Conference. We also supported students going to just before spring break, so they got it in just before the lockdown. And the what was the second half of that question, Scott?
Study abroad.
Study abroad, thank you. Yes, we have students doing study abroad. Like double majoring, it'll require a little bit of advanced planning. So any student who's interested in studying abroad, I urge you to tell me about it as soon as you arrive, so that we can be planning to rearrange a couple of courses so that we can make that work. And sophomore year is the easiest time for a petroleum engineer to do study abroad. So there'd be some real advantage to starting to have that conversation right away. Again, we're a very global industry these days. I worked internationally. I did not have a study abroad opportunity that I took advantage of as a student, but anything that gives you that experience working across cultures is going to be valuable to you if you in many of your career tracks.
Okay. Knowing what you know now, and if I were to start petroleum engineering at Marietta College now and looking 4 years from now, would you have majored in petroleum engineering yourself?
Yes. Knowing how my career and my life unfolded, it's been a great ride. I've enjoyed every job I've ever had. I have had opportunities that are amazing in my life. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I really feel that I'm doing something valuable for society in providing that energy that we need in order to thrive. So I absolutely would do it again. I certainly would, if I were an 18-year-old today, I'd want to go into it with my eyes wide open that starting in the midst of a slump is scary, and you're right to be scared. But you know the old adage for the stock market, buy low, sell high. Entering petroleum engineering during a slump is buying low. Entering petroleum engineering during a boom is buying high. And so what we see inevitably is during boom times, everybody and their dog wants to be a petroleum engineer, often for the wrong reasons. They hear about 100% placements and six-figure salaries. But if you enter during a boom, there's a decent chance you're going to graduate during a bust, or find a bust coming 2, 3, 4 years out when you're still a young engineer trying to build a reputation. Starting during a bust, the reverse. The odds are higher that you're going to graduate in good time, or that it will be good times a few years out. So
Okay.
I think it's good, but I do urge people to go in with your eyes wide open.
Okay. And we have time for one last question, and that one in the queue. And I see a couple more came in, but we're running out of time here. The last question for you, Mr. Ebenhack, is how in Southeastern Ohio at Marietta College did such a globally recognized petroleum engineering degree come to be?
Okay. Well, we're actually in the cradle of the petroleum industry. You know, the tri-state area, Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, northern West Virginia, is where it all started in 1859. And the first booms were in this part of the country. So it got started that somebody named Edwin R. Brown made a fortune in the petroleum industry, and later in life decided that he wanted to donate to start a petroleum program here at Marietta College in 1946, I believe it was, that launched.
Okay. Okay. Well, I would like to thank those of you who have joined us here this evening, and Mr. Ebenhack. And should anyone have any questions, there have been a couple that come up here on the Q&A that I will respond to once we've signed off from here this evening, and I'll get back to you. Should you have any questions for me or admissions, you can reach us at admit@marietta.edu. And Mr. Ebenhack, if you would like to, I can't recall if you did earlier in the introduction, but do you want to leave them with your contact information?
Absolutely. My email address is my initials, BWE001@marietta.edu. My office phone isn't going to be helpful to you for a while. Email's the best way to reach me. And don't hesitate, please. If you've got questions for me, please do contact me.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we, everyone at Marietta College want you to take care of yourselves and your families as we are doing here with our campus and our students. The campus looks awesome. It's beautiful, and we can't wait for our students to join us again, and hopefully including all of you that are here with us this evening. So until then, have a great evening and take care, please. Good night.
Good night, all.